Hello, and welcome to today's program. I'm Ethan Chazen, a New York-based organization development coach. I focus on three things: working with organizations to train and develop their employees. I coach their leadership teams, both individually as well as a collective group. I also work with organizations to grow through their people-based initiatives and achieving culture transformation. Today's program is simply entitled Human Resources is Dead. Where do I come up with that? Let me share with you a journey. It's instructive to know that before I started my consulting practice 15 years ago, I spent 20 years in corporate America, mostly in marketing and product management roles for some of the largest organizations, from Time Warner Cable to Reuters, Dun & Bradstreet. Let me share with you subjectively my biased experience over 20 years in corporate America. Human resources never advocated on behalf of employees. Torn between the constant ebb and flow, the constant struggle in the relationship divide between employee and employer, HR fundamentally, universally sided with management in terms of those tug of wars and attempted to gain a seat at the senior leadership table. Think about the word or the title, human relations. Historically, as America moved into a post-agrarian industrial manufacturing society, the 20th century, HR was enacted to be the central depository of all people-based initiatives: payroll, benefits, time and attendance. And in the 20th century to 21st century, take on supplemental roles in people development, promotions, training, certifications, all those other what we call soft skills or career and professional development. In the 21st century, HR can no longer skate by as being the draconian enforcer of senior management directives, of command and control strategies to keep that dead 20th century organizational structure, the pyramid, in existence. They can no longer support a workforce that in the past century was populated by boomers and matures. It no longer will work. HR needs a new model to accommodate, in the 21st century, the significant increase. The fastest growing segment of the American workforce population are Gen Zs and younger millennials. At the same time, in parallel with this increasing younger percent of the American workforce population, is a similar decrease in the more mature workforce, boomers and matures, as they leave by the tens of thousands of every day. The nature of expectation with Gen Zs and millennials is fundamentally different in terms of what kind of relationship they want to have with the organization that they're employed by, and their relationship with work. What do younger generations, younger employees not only want, but demand that HR needs to now deliver? They want their ideas to matter, and they want their ideas to be solicited and acted on. They want to see the organizations they choose to work for reflect their values by doing positive things in the communities in which that organization exists. These younger workers want more autonomy. They want control over work. They want to be able to pick and choose where they work from, when they do the work, who they work with, and how they get the work done. They now demand that their organizations, and therefore human resources, to take ownership, joint ownership of their career and professional development. Are you in HR truly, genuinely in alignment with this shift in the American workforce? When I say human resources needs to act quickly to transform the role that it has served, Think about what's happening inside the human resources department. All of those administrative, repetitive, process-driven tasks, payroll, time and attendance, benefits, they're gone. They're being outsourced. That's the existence of the preferred employer organization model. That's why organizations like Paychex, Ceridian, ADP, TriNet, Insperity, that's why they exist. Okay, now, what else is there for human resources to actually do? Training and development. Is it being done by HR in such a way that it's being done across the organization, up and down the organization, in and outside the organization? Okay, great. My guess is anecdotally, it's not being done effectively based only on my 20 years of experience in the private sector and the past 15 years as a business growth coach working with over 500 organizations. What else is there for HR to accomplish? In addition to all of those administrative roles that are being outsourced now, in addition to the employee career and professional development, HR also needs to lead initiatives around succession planning, building a bench, revisiting your HR workflow process, every step of the stage of the traditional HR management workflow, from talent acquisition, identifying whether you have the right people in the right roles right now to drive future growth, and then to look across the organization and determine how you do your interviewing, your recruiting, your hiring, your onboarding. Now that you've looked for, identified, found, and brought into the organization the right people that fit your culture, you're going to have to do certain things with them. You're going to have to make sure they get fully acclimated from day one. They're part of your culture, that they are being actively engaged and work is delegated to them. The minute you delegate work to these young professionals, you need to do coaching, training, guiding. Is that being done holistically across your organization? Anecdotally, from what I've observed, hell no. Now, career advancement, coaching, mentoring, sponsorship programs. Do you have a formal program around those? Likely not. And then when you've been forced to contend with the fact that even despite your best intentions, people will leave, do you have, in the same way you had an onboarding formal process, do you have an offboarding process? HR needs to manage every stage of the employee relationship life cycle. How are you doing that? Are you constantly putting your finger on the pulse of what your people feel? It's not enough to check the boxes of these arbitrary things called diversity, equity, inclusion and say, yeah, we do that. Look, we have a program. No, there's actually a backlash nowadays against DE&I because it seems to be artificially mandated, being dictated by outside forces. And, oh, by the way, your people can sniff test the sincerity of your intent around it. How? Because they know that you offering it may or may not fit your vision, your mission, and your bona fide organizational values. How are you surveying your people? They call them pulse surveys. Are you not just doing it once a year or once a quarter? Are you doing it every day? Every day, are you engaging your workforce? Now, let's talk about the last piece that I've been chomping at the bit to talk about. Culture. How are you identifying whether you have on the spectrum from great organization, workplace, to dead organization walking? What's your culture? And it doesn't matter what you say it is, by the way, and it doesn't matter what your marketing department spins it to be. That's aspirational. That's called formal culture. What is it actually like? Do you say things like there's a war on talent or we're struggling to acquire highly talented workers? If your cop-out is that there is a war on talent, you're dead. Because there is no war on talent. What I mean by that is the best organizations, the best people-focused organizations never struggle to get and keep best talent because they've built an amazing workplace culture that is driven by this powerful force of putting their people first. How can I dare say that? Because I spent nearly a decade researching it. My second book, The Compassionate Organization, published back in 2018. I spent a decade looking at over 200 countries and over 7,000 organizations. And I said, what, if any, attributes are there in those organizations that enable them to financially be number one or number two in their respective industries and markets? And after a decade of research, it became clear that the one universal attribute or characteristics that all amazing workplaces share is an incredibly compassionate and people-driven culture. So, HR professional, human resources, what are you doing as a champion, being the tip of the spear to drive the transformation from a command control 20th century organization, which is dead, to a 21st century flat matrix organization where control is no longer part of the vernacular of the corporate enterprise? I don't care if you're a 5-employee firm or 100,000. Anytime you go to this, which is command control, that structure is about toxicity, control, harm. It creates stress and trauma. You want to move away from that model. What are you doing in HR as a champion in your function to shift control from employer, which is top-down command control, to a more equitable partnership between employer and employees? That is what the world-class organizations, maybe some of your direct competitors in your industry, are right now grappling with and struggling to understand. So if you're interested in learning more about transforming your culture from management, which is dead. By the way, people often say, oh, managing and leading interchangeably. Those are diametrically opposed. It's incapable of having those two terms in your culture. They're mutually exclusive. Why? Think about the word management, whether Latin mano agere or the French management. It literally translates into controlling your employees, dictating the work, dictating how they get things done. It's punitive. The reward is what we call indentured servitude. It's a paycheck. There's no motivation. There's no intrinsic motivation, empowerment. Leadership is by its very nature 21st century. Leadership is the future of your workforce organizational culture. Leadership is about knowing the way, showing the way, going the way. Leadership implies followers. Are your people going to follow your leadership team into battle? Or are they just in it for the paycheck to get as much experience, fill a void on a resume until such time as they're looking around, they find the next opportunity? What makes people stay at your organization and be engaged versus what makes them emotionally check out, what you call silent quitting, and ultimately leave? Culture or lack thereof. And human resources, you own it. It's on you. I am anointing you with culture oil. Go forth, prosper. If you like this video, please be sure to go down below, subscribe, like, and share. And come back regularly to the YouTube channel here where I'm putting videos on a regular basis to help you in your singular mission to transform your organization culture from dead organization walk-in to amazing workplace culture. Thanks so much for stopping in today. And as I said, subscribe, like, and share. Have a great day.